Enya, you're very welcome to
Thank you.
the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Now, it is an awful long time, isn't it, since you had a chat here?
It's quite a few years.
Quite a few years.
We won't go into the date, but...
But it's in the 90s, not,
Yes,
even,
it was.
not even in the noughties.
No, it was.
Amarantine, where does that come from? Where does that word come from?
It's actually an Old English word that means everlasting. And the song I'd written, it's very much a love song. And when I was working with Roma on the words, Roma Ryan, who's the lyricist for the album, she thought it would be so beautiful to use the word Amarantine because it's, again, an Old English word, but it means everlasting. So the song was about love, so the song is Everlasting Love.
The album's already very successful. Some 4 million copies, gone platinum in all the usual territories where you work. Do you find it a pressure? The last album sold, what, 13 million? And still selling, because your albums sell forever and forever and forever. Do you find it a pressure then to kind of match the success of the previous one?
I find when I go to the studio, I try not to think about the sales aspect of, you know, how the albums had done previously. I try to focus a lot on the music. So we have our own studio, myself and the producer, Nicky Ryan, and we tend to kind of walk in and kind of focus on what are we going to do and what are we going to work on. So in that way, I can actually separate, you know, the successes from the albums. But when you release the album, you're very anxious then. You think, oh, is there anybody going to listen to the music? Will they still want to hear, you know? Because the last time, it's like 5 years since my last album, so that's quite a big
wonder,
gap.
have they forgotten me?
Well, yes, that can happen, that can happen.
But clearly they haven't forgotten you.
Not so far.
What, 69 million albums. America's very good to you. What other places are you sort of absolutely huge?
It's worldwide, really, because
Japan,
I'm still
though.
on Japan and Europe, and you know, I'm still on the promotional trip.
You are the #1 female artist in Japan, I hear.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny, because when you're at home, you kind of lead a very quiet life, don't you?
Yes, I do, because I find you know, I work a lot on the music, and then when I'm promoting, it's like you're in every city, you know, you're in Tokyo, you're in New York, you're in LA, and it's a lot of time, and I enjoy it, my work, but then I'm very guarded to my own time, as they say.
Yeah.
So
you know you have a reputation for being a recluse. You know that, don't you? Now, are you a recluse?
well, what do you think?
Well, I don't see in the Queen's in Dalkey very often for a pint. Let's put it that way.
I'd be more likely in a restaurant with, you know, friends and...
So you're not a recluse?
No. I mean, the word recluse, it depends how you define it, but like the fact some people see me as locking doors and staying, you know.
I want to be
like
alone.
how would I get the albums done, you know, because every day I'm working, or so far I've been just traveling abroad, so sometimes I don't spend a lot of time in Ireland, you know, when I'm traveling.
But because of your reputation, and you mentioned that you're big in virtually all the major territories in the world, you're going to get people taking an unhealthy interest in you. I mean, recently you had that scare where your housekeeper was actually, was it held hostage?
Yeah, it's something that has happened since the success of, you know, my first album. I have to say that there are pros and cons to success, and one of the con aspect is that I've had stalkers from day one, and it's something that, you know, when it happens, it's quite traumatic, but I tend not to try and give it a lot of space, and I try to move on with what I'm doing. I mean, I just went back into the studio, not to give it a lot of space, because if it's an ongoing problem, I don't want to be so scared that I won't walk the street and become then a recluse.
Yeah, and then you would, as you say, you would then become a recluse. But in terms of stuff, I mean, is it more than one, or do you know?
Oh, yeah.
You've lots?
There's quite a few of them, yeah.
And what is it, do you think, that attracts them to do that kind of... Is it the mystical nature of the music? You know, there are people who kind of think that they're on the same planet as you are, and therefore that you and they belong together, or something like that?
Yeah, it can be an obsession to me as a person, or just the music, you know. So the music, they say, is giving them this message, and they want to kind of talk to me about this message to get them in the music. And so it can be either me or the music.
Now, you have recorded in Irish, of course, being from Gweedore. You've recorded in English. You've recorded, I believe, in Japanese.
Yes, I have, yeah.
Other languages?
There's a new language.
There's a new language. Let's come to that. But besides the world languages that you've recorded, this new language, what's it called, Loxian?
It's Loxian.
Yeah. Now, where does that language come from?
It's a language that Roma's created for the album. And I suppose if we go back to working the soundtrack for Lord of the Rings, Roma had sort of studied Tolkien's fictional language for the lyrics to Amarantine and Maid Be, the two songs in the soundtrack. And we enjoyed it so much, you know, working, you know, the fictional language. And therefore, when we came to one song, and the lyrics were written, and I went to sing it. Yes, I went to sing it, Water Shows the Hidden Heart. And it didn't work. It actually didn't work. And this is one of the reasons we do try other languages, because we always feel that we're trying to get across what the song is about. I'm going to try and sort of capture emotionally what the song is about. So if the language is wrong, then we feel that we have to look further. So Roma then came in with the first line, which was Si Umbra Ea. And I went to sing it, and that's how she started.
Right.
It
Is there
right.
a Loxian dictionary now so they can actually translate?
Well, what had happened was it was one song firstly, and then two other songs now are sung in Loxian. But again, it was a case of we thought, you know, one of the songs, The River Sings, I was sure it was going to be in Gaelic when I'd written it. But then I'd sung it in Gaelic, and I thought, this is not sort of gelling, this is not working with the melody. And at this stage, Roma was expanding the language. So for each song, she actually would expand more and more.
So there is a lexicon of Loxian now.
Well, what she has done now, she's written a book about it, and she's given them their own history and their own culture, the Loxian people. So it was so inspiring for me. It was so beautiful to work with.
Now, you mentioned Roma and you mentioned Nikki, your producer. What is the creative process between the three of you? How does it work?
Well, basically, I would go to the studio and I would put together a melody. And that can take me a while. I still find the success doesn't make it any easier to write a melody. But once I have the melody, and I'll play it to Nick and to Roma, and we feel, yes, this is a song we want to work on, then I start to arrange the music with Nikki, and then Roma starts to write the lyrics.
And in terms of instrumentation, I mean, do you bring in live orchestras, or do you use keyboards again and again and layer things, or how does it work?
There's a lot of layers of sound that we put together to create what kind of sounds like an orchestra. So it's a case of not only does Nikki sort of get me to layer my voice and harmonize, but also with the sounds that we sort